Hi, people. Welcome to the iWrite Radio videocast stroke podcast for Monday. Boris is back. I suppose we have to mention that. Did a wee stand outside number 10 today. Now we're going to cover today's Scottish presser, the Jim Silla's article in the National, and I think we might just have a wee mention of Frankie Boyle's. Was that Facebook? Just on Facebook?
No, it's actually an article that he'd written for somebody, mate. It was published
The
on
Guardian.
I think it's a Guardian, but it was also put on a couple of websites.
Cool. So today's presser, Stuart, we'll let you kick off with this. You seem to enjoy today.
Aye, well, it did because the First Minister scalped a couple of hyenas today. I don't need to think about the verb. What are you going to do a bad thing to a hyena with? A spear? A kick up the butt? Anyway, they got kicked. Peter McMahon earlier on. Now, normally Peter McMahon, you see, I study these strange statistics ever since these presses have started. Peter McMahon would come up in the first three, day after day after day. He's slipping down now. Anyway, he got scalped today. Peter McMahon asked a question which was something to do with headlines in the gutter press today. The First Minister said, "Did you twist and exaggerate the headlines?"
Oh, this was the border one.
The border TV fella.
No. The question was about borders.
Oh yeah, it was a complete lie in the headlines in the papers. Apparently, I didn't see I don't read these gutter tabloids, but apparently it suggested that Nicola Sturgeon was going to close the border.
The original question was about people being flown into the country. And she said, well, she wasn't sure that was a good idea and she would have to have discussions about people isolating after they came into the country, etc., etc. And the tabloid press picked it up as she's going to shut the Scottish border. And she never mentioned the Scottish border.
You're letting them off far too lightly. You're being far too generous to them.
Well, you know, I mean, it could have been a bad connection. I can't remember. I do remember at the time. No, Stuart, in all fairness, I remember at the time.
Yesterday.
Well, I remember at the time thinking that's not terribly clear. I do remember saying that. I mean, it was obvious when you thought about it, but, you know.
That was days ago, Norrie. She repeated the situation yesterday. Or it was repeated yesterday then.
Yeah, but, you know, tabloids is going to tabloid.
Well, they've got to sell newspapers, and if they've got ridiculous headlines like the Sun and the Record need to grab people's attention when they go in for a couple of pints of milk and a bar of chocolate to take to their work or to take home again because they're not going to their work, that's the reason they put them there. But it doesn't help when you get your Willie Rennies and Jackson Carlo that can't wait, that have had a phone that hasn't rung all last week because they're kind of being, well, they're being included in the decision-making process. They're getting to have input. So they're irrelevant because nobody's interested in what they've got to say last week.
I like the Carlo position of there should be no political attacks on the Tory government at Westminster, but I will continue to attack the SNP at Holyrood.
Well, that's another story, isn't it?
It's almost as ridiculous as his position that he tweeted earlier that there is no border between Scotland and England.
Well, I can show him it if he wants to know.
As Jerry Hassan put, he must get awfully confused every time he bloody crosses said border.
Well, it's interesting. Does that suggest that Scottish law extends all the way to Cornwall?
Exactly.
Oh, and that's a good plan.
That could be an interesting viewpoint for Jackson to take, because I've certainly got a couple of issues with London control if Scottish law is prevalent in there.
Well, here's one if you can cast your mind back to when the what they call DUP got money anonymously and produced all the leaflets that were sent out in the UK but not in Northern Ireland, because the law in Northern Ireland was if you donated to a political party You didn't have to say who the donation had come from in case somebody went round the house and put a bullet in their head.
Aye.
Mm-hmm.
So if Scottish law applies in Northern Ireland, because there's no borders, we could maybe revisit that one.
Well, that'd be interesting to know. I've always wondered what happened to that dark money story. I suppose it doesn't really help that none of the press were really interested in reporting where the money came from, because it was probably the bloody owners.
When I first got divorced, I'd moved back to Scotland from England, and I had to appear in a Berwick court and make an affidavit before my ex-wife could take my children abroad.
Well, there's no difference between North Berwick and Berwick, mate. No, Richard Leonard basically stated that in black and white the other day.
And Richard's always right.
You know, so you should have told him to stick it.
Did he have that shugle of authority when he was stating it, Norrie?
Right, there was one other another occasion in today's presser when the First Minister scalped somebody's bottom, and this time it was Paul Hutchins' poodle, Louise Aitken. You can always predict, as soon as you hear the name Record Aitken, you know what it's going to be.
Bullshit.
And this was the crap about 22 dead in a care home in Elderslie. And why didn't they any of them go to hospital? Well, again, what was this? Oh yes, the question was, weren't there more deaths in England or something? More than England? More care home deaths in England. Oh, she wasn't having none of that, was she? No, she was. I don't agree at all. She said that there could be a difference in the way of collecting the data. She said.
Well, it's 2 weeks behind. We know that. So it's a week behind Scotland, and it'll be. And we hope it's true. We hope all these unexplained deaths in England, because the deaths are running about the same rate in care homes, but all these unexplained deaths that don't have coronavirus on the death certificate as a cause or a contributor, we're going to be really interested to see what kind of horrible disease is floating about in English care homes that isn't in European care homes or Scottish care homes.
Yeah,
the question should be, why can't England explain all these unexplained deaths?
Oh, didn't ask that question. That's too difficult. Boris will go back in the fridge.
I did miss one from Jim Matthews from Sky, and he's proved to be a bit of he's a hyena. He's a lower, what do they call it? He's not an alpha, he's only a beta hyena in the pack. But he got scalped as well. He was asking about whether construction sites in Scotland would be going back, whereas some construction sites, wouldn't be going back, but construction sites in England would. What was his answer to that? There'll be no change to the guidance.
The policy hasn't changed. Yeah.
I think she deliberately calls him Jim Matthews every day because he likes to be a James. He always announces himself as James. Clearly, he's got that. Being a Jimmy myself, he's clearly got that broom up his arse that means that he needs to call himself James. So I think that's why she deliberately calls him Jim, just to rile him before he asks his question. Because he's a wee horse's ass, and it's quite right that he's treated as such.
This is another one of these classic situations, though. If the Scottish government were to come out with a policy that said anybody in a care home who shows signs of coronavirus has to go to hospital, Jackson Carlaw would be getting letters within minutes from children of people in care homes saying, I don't want my mammy to go to hospital because the drive in the ambulance will kill her. You know,
I didn't get, Norrie, why they didn't just take as read the answer that they've been getting for that particular, because they've been at this point for a couple of weeks now. Clinical decisions are made by clinicians. Nicola Sturgeon has zero input as to whether old Betty for the care home is treated in the care home or at hospital. It's old Betty's doctor that makes that decision.
Wow.
There are no guidelines saying that you can't take her into hospital. And that's what they're trying to get at, because there were some letters issued. I believe one Glasgow GP practice was stupid enough to go along with it, but certainly there were a few issued in England that said there were guidelines when there just weren't. There are no guidelines. It's the doctor that makes the decision.
Well, the fact of the matter is, a GP, if a GP believes clinically the right thing to do is issue a do not resuscitate, he can override the family.
Mm-hmm.
He can do that. He has that power, because I've been in that situation.
Right.
The other one is, again, personal experience. My mother needed oxygen quite often, smoker all her days, but they had to take her out of the home to a hospital to give her the oxygen. Okay. So every time that she needed to go into hospital for oxygen, the traveling knocked her stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, it took her weeks to get over it at both ends. Once she recovered sufficiently in hospital to be sent back to the home, it was literally weeks for her to get over the travel. And it took us a while to actually force them to procure equipment to give her oxygen in the home.
It's quite ridiculous, a situation like that.
But the comfort level for her, once that was done, because she didn't worry about getting humped into the back of an ambulance and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she just stuck the mask on. That was it. It was one of these ones that draws the oxygen out the air. It's oxygen enriched air, basically, not pure oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
But it took us a long time to get that sorted, because the first thing they did was they found an ambulance. You know.
Well, I don't know, Norrie. I think, again, I didn't want to labour the point about how shit the press pack are, because we've kind of covered that extensively over the last couple of weeks. But I think we should perhaps be quite pleased that the press pack are showing their true colours, because some of these briefings, daily briefings, will get a much bigger audience than an average appearance by Nicola Sturgeon at a press conference. So maybe the press pack are actually doing us a favour, showing us that they are assholes, but also showing some of these soft nose out there that the press pack can't be trusted with the truth. Nicely
done, because that brings us on to the solid yes ex-Labour knows how to join old man Jim Sillars has been writing in the National, suggesting that the Alex Salmond book, which hasn't been published yet, is going to be basically 40 ton of TNT underneath the SNP. Thoughts on that, guys? Stuart?
Yes, well, I can't say that Jim Sillars has been my favourite over the years. In recent years, he's been a bit of an outlier. However, times change, and everybody can change their mind under the current circumstances. And he seems to, it's a very short article. It's an article in the National about an article in the Herald about a full-blooded essay coming up in the Scottish Left Review. So let's not read too much into it. However, Jim Sillars is saying that he saw the evidence from Alex Salmond that wasn't allowed to be shown, produced in court. And he's convinced that it'll blow the SNP apart at the top. Now, I'm not going to mention any names apart from the chief executive, Mr. Peter Murrell, but I have no evidence at all that he's involved.
Yeah, I agree with you, Stuart. I think that it is a short article, but the important point that it makes, as well as pointing you to the Scottish Left Review, obviously, is that he's had sight of some of this evidence, the documentary evidence from within the SNP and within the Scottish government. And Jim, you're right, Jim Sillars has been a bit of an old curmudgeon the last few years, but he still knows a bomb when he spots a bomb. So I'm kind of looking forward to the top echelons of the SNP having said bomb planted under them and seeing which way they run.
I find myself very wary about this one. Jim's always had an axe to grind about the SNP. I think his nose is going to be permanently out of joint till the day he dies. about not getting a leadership position in the SNP. I think he kind of comes into that bracket with Craig Murray, where the SNP had one look at him and thought loose cannon.
Mm.
I take everything I hear from him with a pinch of salt. I really do. I don't think he would have been printing that if Margot had still been alive. Let me put it that way.
What are you trying to say? Are you trying to say that
I think he's politicking.
All these outliers like Wing, Stu Campbell, Craig Murray, Jim Sellers, and there's quite a few others that they don't say it blatantly, are not telling the truth about what the possible conspiracy that was set up to convict.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is Jim Sellers in particular is politicking. That's what he's doing. He's on maneuvers, and I'm sorry, I see no gain for the independence movement by blowing up the top of the SNP.
Well, that's a good issue, but I'm not sure if we could discuss it today. I don't think we'd come to a conclusion, though.
Yeah,
no, I don't. But
I think the reality is Alex is going to publish his book, but he'll publish it at a time that suits him.
Well, I hope that's the case. If Salmon was to publish a book that led to major splits in the SNP, the attempt to form a separate independence party, we know what kind of history new parties have in politics. I can't see it happening.
Well, Jim Sellers pointed that out himself. He did say that himself.
Yes, no, I know that.
He's not going to publish until after next year's election, because they're not going to get a judicial review and a parliamentary review into the case, into stuff around Salmond and how it all happened. And he's not going to publish his book prior to these things reporting, I don't think. I can't see why he would.
Well, I hope you're right. I mean, in my heart of hearts, I don't believe Salmond would risk a second independence referendum result being weakened by a book he published. So that's my position.
Yeah, but that makes an assumption that you're not entitled to make, Norrie. I would say that yes, the SNP can creep up into maybe even 60%, but anyway, over 50%, which is amazing if you're talking about getting seats in the Parliament. I think you could even get to 55% on a poll asking about people for independence. But the devastation over a referendum, well, let's put it this way, there are other people that we all three of us respect that don't think a referendum is the route anymore.
Well, I'm sorry, that's not my position and never has been. There's no way to do this without a vote.
That's asking permission. That is a good. That goes totally against Peter Bell's position, which he espoused today. He did say it. Permission is not power, First Minister. By seeking permission rather than taking power, you disrespect and diminish the mandate offered you by the people of Scotland. With respect, First Minister, I would strongly advise against that. That's Peter's quoted today. If you ask permission for a referendum, look how many independent countries have gained their independence.
Stuart, whoa! Nobody's talking about asking permission. By having a referendum could be held after any action. Peter Bell's not ruling out a vote. Whatever we do, there would have to be the approval of the Scottish people, or it couldn't happen. We'd have to have a vote at some point.
I'm not saying we shouldn't. But asking permission for a Section 30 referendum is not the route I would go down. No,
I mean, I'm sorry, Stuart. Would you please call it what it is? Would you please call it UDI? That's what you want.
No, you're
UDI, then a referendum.
You're the tabloid hyena using that term. You're suggesting things could happen that won't happen.
Okay, you tell me the route. You tell me the route we get to a referendum that will be recognized by anybody.
The same route that nearly every country that got its independence from England in the past.
Right, okay. So how did they do it?
Well, look it up. There's dozens of...
No, tell me how they did it and tell me it wasn't UDI.
Oh, so they all just declared UDI.
Well, who didn't?
Canada, Australia, all the African colonies.
Right. So you think what? That the British government are going to agree to this?
I stick with Peter's position, which is
Peter's position is UDI. Small step UDI.
dissolve the union is his position rather than UDI.
Well, okay, euphemisms. Okay, right. She closes the border. What's she just done?
Whoa! You're making a huge assumptions there. You're assuming that Nicola Sturgeon will still be there by the time we get to a referendum.
Okay, somebody closes the border. Jim Sillars closes the border. What's that if not a declaration of UDI?
I've never said we're closing the border.
Well, I mean, what steps do you want her to take?
All right, let's look at the Irish situation. It took something like 20 odd years between them taking dominion status. In other words, it was like a ceasefire without making peace until 1949, when they finally actually got their real independence. But they had their independence de facto from 1922. Did
they? And how did they get there? How many people got killed on the way?
Well, perhaps it wasn't the best example.
Yeah, there isn't a good example, Stuart.
Do you think there are people in Scotland that take up arms to stop us getting our independence? If they are, it's not the people that want independence; it's the opposition.
Well,
not many, but the unfortunate thing when you talk about the Dominion states like Canada, Australia, all the African states after the war, Britain couldn't afford to have an empire. That's why they had to let the empire slide. Britain was bankrupt after the war. We're that much in hock to America. We only finally paid it back in 1999, for Christ's sake. So we didn't grant independence so much as cut ties with colonies that might need some fiscal help at some point from us next exchequer that couldn't afford it. They're not in that position with Scotland. They need Scotland's money. They need our resources. They will never let us go.
Well, again, you're making
we have to force it.
Again, you're making an assumption I don't accept. You're saying that it was definitely costing money to keep warships east of Suez at these times. But in the medium to long term, these colonies, they didn't keep them for the good out of the goodness of their heart. They kept them because they were financially beneficial to the British state.
Aye, and so are we.
I just, guys, what step are we going to take that wouldn't get a reaction? You know, I'm sorry, at 50%, I mean, if it was 75%, I would consider it. If there was 75% support for independence in Scotland, UDI, or a version of it, baby step UDI, call it.
Let me finish it. Let me give you an example. You did ask. There was a time...
And you gave me Ireland.
No, okay. Well, Mrs. Thatcher said at some point not too long ago in history that if Scotland had a majority of MPs, Scottish MPs at Westminster, they'd be entitled to have their independence. Now, if you go into an election with that as your mandate, you achieve that, then you say, right, we are now entitled to declare independence, and we will have a referendum.
Right.
We entered the EU as Britain without a referendum. We only had a confirmation referendum after we'd already gone in. So the same thing could count for Scotland.
Let me get this clear and simplify it a little. You want the SNP to go into the next election.
No, you were asking for an example. I'm not being specific at the moment.
Okay, so basically what you want to do is nothing. Because you're not prepared to be specific.
We came from the topic of Jim Sillars talking about blowing up the SNP, did we not? Is that true?
Yes.
Now, that throws everything into the possibilities. You can't predict what's going to happen in the next couple of years if that book explodes.
Sorry, Stuart, I'll predict it. I'll tell you exactly what will happen. If they blow up the SNP and it disintegrates and we create two independence parties, we're on the first road. We're on the first rung of the ladder to become the Labour Party.
I am not saying that's what should happen. We are not in none. Look, you, me, and Jimmy are not in a position to decide what happens. But I'm suggesting that is the sort of scenario that could happen.
Yeah, and it would be the wrong way to go.
Well, that doesn't mean to say it's right or wrong. It's just a possibility.
No,
You asked for a possible route.
It's an absolute, complete and utterly stupid idea.
Well, that's your opinion, but you just asked for a route.
You want to get rid of the most successful vehicle for independence.
I'm not saying that at all. You're putting prescription into my description. I'm giving you a description, not a prescription.
Okay, do you think it would be a good idea?
No.
Do you think any sort of split in the SNP would be a good idea?
No, I have no idea. We've got a very bad situation at the moment. We seem to have a very corrupt, devolved government who seems to be able to use the police for political purposes. 22 police and 2 years of an investigation, millions of pounds, just to convict Alex Salmond? No, that's wrong. That's very wrong.
So you think this has come from the SNP?
Well, I've mentioned the man's name myself.
You think it's come from Paul Murrell?
Peter
Murrell.
I don't think he's got the balls to try it.
He's been chief executive ever since when? When did he first start as chief executive?
I don't know.
So you believe that Nicola Sturgeon's husband can pick up the phone to the chief of police and say, arrest Salmond. He can then pick up the phone to the procurator fiscal and say, get this guy into court.
You're putting words in my mouth again. All I'm saying is, who is responsible for the mess the party's in at the moment? The chief executive.
You are.
Oh, I am. The chief executive carries the can of any political party.
Oh, nonsense. The leader carries the can.
The leader.
The executive never carried the can in any political party. The leader.
Right, but look what happened to Labour recently. That was the chief executive. It was the executive committee of the Labour Party that conspired against Jeremy Corbyn to make it in such a mess to blow up the Labour Party.
And all the people that allowed them to do it by supporting a smear campaign in the press.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you still got to blame the executive committee.
No, you can blame the liars in the press.
Well, obviously they went along with it. Absolutely.
You can blame the committee when they decided to use that as a tool to oust somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. It's obviously a crazy place to go. I'm not prescribing it. I'm merely describing the possibility.
Well, it's the wrong route. James.
Aye, well. I'll let you, Pierre, have your wee stramash about that. The reality of it all is, if Alex Salmond's book comes out and it blows up under Nicola Sturgeon, so be it. She'll no longer be leader of the SNP, but it would cost us. Well, it would probably cost us, what, 10 years?
I'm already waited 5 years since 2014. What's another 10 years?
It's not about you waiting, Stuart. It's about the whole country waiting, mate.
Right,
it's not about you.
Fair enough. That's fair enough. But I will get frustrated.
Well,
what we're going to see is if Alex Salmond, I didn't think he'll publish the book. I think he'll wait because I think
there's another story.
The judicial review, the parliamentary review, the parliamentary inquiry, that's going to be quite difficult to do. Just purely because these people are so well known with the alphabet women, shall we say, are so well known to people in Parliament. Half the Parliament either worked with them or certainly socialised with them. So that's going to be difficult. The judicial review, black and white, the law, will find out who pushed what buttons, when. And if we don't, then Alex releases his book. The fact that he has written evidence from within the Parliament and from within the SNP means that the judicial review can't hide anything. Because if he's got that evidence and they don't act on it, then he publishes that evidence. And I'm sorry, if it's even close to bringing down either Nicola Sturgeon or her husband, then every single tabloid newspaper in Western Europe will carry it, not just in the UK.
Well, is there anything that the top of the SNP could do or say to Alex Salmond to stop him publishing?
I very much doubt it. At the end of the day, mate, if you're right and it did come for the top of the party, they tried to put the man in jail. There's no coming back for that. He's going to exact his revenge and at a time of his choosing. And if they're stupid enough to try and put him in jail when he's got documentary evidence showing that they were plotting to do so, hell mend them. They should maybe be looking at jail time themselves.
The only way out of this is if there are people at the top of the party who are guilty of a conspiracy to try and put Salmond in jail, is for them to fall on their swords.
Aye, resign, step out, and
the only
step
way.
out forever.
Throwing them out of the party won't be good enough. They have to step off the cliff themselves.
Can they find an excuse to do so without getting shutting down the scandal?
They'd have to do it all together and immediately, and they'd have to keep their mouths shut. And I don't think that'll happen.
No, that's not going to happen.
This, in a different way, is going to be more effective if it comes to fruition in destroying the SNP than anything I can think of.
Anybody know if there's a Scottish Mario Puts out there? Because he could make a hell of a movie out of all this.
Right. Let's move on to our favourite comedian, Frankie Boyle, who's written, I think it was for The Guardian, and has, I think we can honestly say, torn this Tory government a second orifice.
Oh, he's torn a good few orifices there. I mean, fair play, he does. There's a couple of references to people being spit roast that are a bit much even for...
only if they're over 6'2".
Mm-hmm. But
you look like you're going to quote something to me there, Jimmy.
Well, I'm just looking at it, mate. There's very little that I could quote, and I would urge everybody to go and have a read of it because it's damn entertaining. Given some of the clowns that we see purporting to be journalists and politicians who are actually just laughable, this is a man who has spent his time learning how to be funny, has a wonderful sense of humour and a great bit of wordsmithery in the article. And some of the things he's got to say about Priti Patel and Matt Hancock are outstanding.
Can you find the Priti Patel quote? I haven't got it in front of me.
Priti Patel is like a candidate from a version of The Apprentice where you want to work for Satan, while Matt Hancock has the air of someone who's still in the friend zone with his own wife. That's just quality, man.
It's very good. So certainly Bite Back, which brings us back to the Boris boy, who's back in the saddle, apparently. Did anybody watch his podium performance outside number 10 today?
I did, I was a wee bit disappointed there wasn't a wee coterie of flag-waving people behind him dressed in 1940s uniforms just to up the schmaltz level a wee bit.
He did it. We'll fight it on the beaches.
No, he heard I was out for a walk, so I came on telly while I was out.
I didn't expect it, so I wasn't looking for it.
I watched it, mate, and it was a bit passé. He didn't go too far with the schmaltz, although, you know, there was a couple of things that stuck in macro. He's describing this fight that we're having, this war that we're having with the virus. He's no declared victory, but he's described the action so far as successful. Really? 20-odd thousand people, by your own twitchy, twisted count. 20-odd thousand deaths is no success as far as I'm concerned. And when we get the real count, and it could possibly be double that, I wonder if he'd still describe that as a success.
I just really worry about this blitz spirit thing. You know,
I think he's obviously the false confidence that Boris Johnson and his crew might have will be based on polls.
Mm-hmm.
But, there ain't a lot of polls, but there is a poll by Toby Helm, I think possibly The Guardian, Opinium, that's a pollster, isn't it?
Aye.
And it covers, it's There's not been a lot of polling, by the way. That's another issue. Why has there not been a lot of polling at the moment? By all
Well,
these newspapers?
telephone and digital you can do, but obviously you
No, but
can't
all
go
the-
and speak
Yeah,
to
well,
people.
but all these expensive newspapers, well, rich newspapers that are normally polling like mad, haven't been doing it.
Well,
Anyway,
Stuart, they didn't want to be phoning people up that have maybe just lost somebody. They're going to get the answer that they didn't want, aren't they?
well, generally speaking, I'll sum up the situation with polling. Polling is, under this circumstance of a crisis like this, generally speaking, whatever government's in power anywhere in the world, they've got good polling, because the people want the problem resolved, and they'll back the government to get the problem. You know, everybody wants the issue resolved safely. However, in the last 2 or 3 weeks since the polling opinion started, the polling for Boris Johnson and the Tories has collapsed. So that's all I've got to say.
It'll be interesting to see
Uh,
what
I
comes out
think-
of the end of
aye.
this.
I think we can go back to Frankie Boyle, mate. Another thing they said, you've almost got to feel a wee bit sorry for the people that voted Tory in the last election. They only thought they'd fuck other people's lives up, not everybody's.
Well, not their own, you mean?
Aye.
On that note, all you Tory voters that obviously don't watch or listen to us, but on that note, I think we'll call it a day. Thanks for listening, folks. Thanks, Stuart Lockhead, Jimmy Hutton. I'm Norrie Stewart for being on, and we'll catch up with you tomorrow. Cheers for now, folks.